Let's talk now to Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of Real Clear Politics in Chicago, Illinois, United States of America. Tom, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning to you, Mike.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Donald Trump's preparing to arrive in the country in Scotland a little bit later on this week, tomorrow, I believe. He's expected to open up a new 18-hole golf course at Trump International and a memorial garden to his mother, Mary Ann McLeod. He's having a fair old time back in the States at the moment, isn't he?
It's been a crazy last few days. Yeah, this has been probably, he had this string of successes for a couple of weeks. He passed his signature piece of legislation barely through both chambers of Congress and got that signed, but also got hit with the sort of controversy over the Epstein files. And then just over the last couple of days, his director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has been declassifying these memos and documents talking about the 2016 election and the Russia collusion hoax. And she was at the White House yesterday in the White House press briefing room answering questions from reporters about it, and also laying out the case that this goes all the way back directly to President Barack Obama. Yeah. And so it's been quite a last 48 hours.
Yeah, I've been watching it. We've got a clip here, I think, with Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, talking about the evidence about Barack Obama. Let's have a look.
The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
It seems a strange thing to have come up, doesn't it? I mean, why suddenly now are they going back to talking about the 2016 election campaign?
Well, I mean, the sort of obvious answer is they're trying to change the narrative. They want to talk about anything other than the Epstein file, because that's the real, I think, the first issue that Donald Trump has encountered where a majority of his supporters disapprove of the way he's handling that issue.
Right.
Everything else up until now,
because they just wanted to release the files, right?
Correct. They, and this is something that Trump and his son Don Jr. they talked about during the campaign. And then they got into office, and his attorney, General Pam Bondi, said, look, I've got the file, I've got the list sitting on my desk, and there are all these videos. And then they came out with this memo a couple of weeks ago saying, there's nothing really here, let's move on. And Trump's been trying to sort of make the case that this is old news, that it's fake news, that it's been ginned up by Barack Obama and his minions when he was in office. And he's not really gaining any traction with those arguments. They don't really pass the smell test. But so now we have this controversy. And by the way, just because it's a distraction from that doesn't mean that it's not an important issue and not something that deserves, I think, looking into. And so that's obviously that's part of the explanation for the timing of this news story.
Sure. Let's have a look at what Donald Trump actually said about Barack Obama and the whole Russian hoax scenario.
The leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one they... Look, he's guilty. It's not a question. I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. President Obama, it was his concept, his idea, but he also got it from crooked Hillary Clinton. Crooked is a $3 bill.
I mean, he's quite remarkable, isn't he, the way that he speaks? And nobody's ever really spoken about anything like the sort of international power politics like he does. Yeah. And they've also released information which says that they can prove that Hillary was basically having sort of psychotic episodes and that she was basically crazy while she was running for election. And they talk about, and they show that clip of her as she was getting into the van that time when she appeared to sort of collapse when they said that she was having, she was just having a bad day because it was very hot or something like that, But if he goes down this road for too long, people are going to think there's something wrong with him, aren't they?
Well, you're right. I mean, look, this was classic Trump. You remember when Trump first came into office, he said, Barack Obama spied on my campaign. And everyone said, oh my God, Trump, that's, well, it turned out actually that was close to the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, there was, but initially when he said it, people said, oh, that's ridiculous. It's over the top. It's absurd. This is a kind of a similar thing, right? I think as more gets released and we sort of dig through it, that we will find that, and it does appear clear that this new ICA, Intelligence Community Assessment, which was the foundation for the entire Russia collusion narrative that ended up leading to, his impeachment, was directed by Barack Obama. I mean, the outlines of this case are that, the intelligence assessment in December of 2016, so this is a month after Trump won, was that Russia hadn't interfered in the election. They did basically what they do every 4 years. This is kind of meddle around, but nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
And that was sort of pulled and rejected, and a newest intelligence assessment was put in its place that said basically that Russia had intervened on behalf of electing Trump and against Hillary Clinton, and that the sort of darker piece of that was that Trump actually was colluding with the Russians, right? He was working with them to help steal the election. There was nothing to support that, and that all came at the direction of Obama saying, look, I want a new intelligence assessment. So that part of it is true. Now, was it treason? No. And I think all of Trump's supporters who desperately want to see Barack Obama, frog marched out of his mansion on Martha's Vineyard and thrown into jail in an orange jumpsuit are going to be disappointed. I don't think we'll ever get to that point. But will there be some accountability? I mean, it does look like John Brennan, for example, the former director of the CIA, might have perjured himself before Congress by saying that, the Steele dossier had nothing to do with this intelligence assessment. Now we learned from one of these documents that he actually included it in the assessment, overruling two of his subordinates who said, look, we don't think this is up to snuff. And Brennan said it's staying in. And so there might be some prosecutions that take place as a result of this. But as far as it going all the way to Obama, that seems like a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, right. And what about the state of America these days? I used to live there many years ago when it was kind of, relatively calm and normal. You could be a Democrat, you could be a Republican, you could talk in a restaurant, you didn't have to have daggers drawn at each other. Is this ever going to pass, this kind of period where there's such, hatred from one side to the other, that they're constantly trying to blame each other for things that happened a long time ago, that, some things might need to be looked at, but it's almost like this kind of self-flagellation that goes on in the whole of society there.
Yeah, and look, this is a phenomenon that's been going on for decades. I think, the advent of social media sort of poured some gasoline on the fire in terms of the tribalism and the partisanship. And look, our system, the main change that's happened, Mike, is that people used to just disagree with the political. I still think you're a good guy. I just disagree with you. Now it's you're an evil person for believing what you believe. And both sides, when it comes to elections, certainly, but even on a day-to-day in terms of the discourse, believe that the other side is an existential threat to their way of life. And so the stakes have sort of rhetorical stakes have risen. And so it, and certainly the media has helped in that, the way that they've treated first Obama in a favorable way and now Donald Trump in a sort of negative way, and the loss of credibility. So look, I think this is the new normal. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any putting that genie back in the bottle. And that's just the sort of times that we live in.
Sure. And what about Donald Trump's visit to Scotland? I mean, it's not a state visit. He's going to get one of those later in the year. So he's not thought to be meeting up with, certainly not with King Charles. And I don't know whether he's going to meet up with Keir Starmer either. But he's effectively coming to Scotland to open a golf course, which is kind of an unusual thing for a president to do, isn't
it? Not for Trump, though. There's nothing that Trump likes more than touring his golf facilities and taking the press on a tour of his beautiful golf courses in Scotland. So he's going to visit two of them there. And as you said, I think he's opening and christening a new course. And so, look, this is, again, unlike any president before him, this is what Donald Trump does. And so I think it'll be more of a publicity tour for him and his properties than any sort of, that's going to result in any sort of, big news or substantial policy announcement.
Right, sure. Well, we'll keep an eye. I'm sure there'll be plenty of protests here as well on that front too. Tom, very good to speak to you. Thank you very much indeed. Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of Real Clear Politics in Chicago.